Okay, I took notes on the first video that I made, and I'm going to go over everything and see if we improved. We're doing homework together. You know who I'm doing it with? Sometimes you got to wonder if, because I'm new to the whole relationship thing, I have to pay really close attention to myself sometimes, because having to be embodied with a spirit that you're in love with, that communicates with you through the external world and the internal world, and to try and decipher that out as to what is me and what is the difference between me and my spirit friend, or my lover, my husband, whatever you want to call it. How do you pull those two things apart between what yourself is? I've been trying to figure that out for a long time, and observing myself is a good way to do it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, I did not take count of the number of times I said because I took a list of every single filler word that I used, which I will go over in the notes. We're working on improvements. In my first step, what did I write down? I wrote that I wanted to discuss the Stoic mindset and how I live my life in a mess, and how I decipher or discern, whichever word you would like to. Which one would it be? The difference between feeling ashamed of what I'm doing or feeling proud of what I'm doing, and how do I feel good about the way I'm living when it's not. I mean, I'll show you how my house looks, and I'll tell you why I feel good about myself, despite, I don't know if I like the word spite, um, even though, there's a good one, how I feel good about myself even though things look like what they look like. And I'll try and explain that, and I will also try and explain it is not anything that I want to keep like it is. But I labeled the aspect of what I'm talking about similar to, and we're going to talk good about a movie as far as how it helps us understand right now. The movie Inception has the theme of a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. Well, skill building, in the kinds of ways which I do build skills, and noticing every single thing which needs to be better for the mind, is like that. There are so many examples of levels of skills that I can pick apart and define during every single circumstance, and to try and focus in on only two or three things is not how my mind works. I can get up into double digits easily when I start trying to count what all skills and positive reasons of why something is good for me as to what it is I'm doing here. So I'm going to start out and say that I counted the number of headers that I did for accuracy, and it is 6. And I'm going to show and tell what I did. Here's the first one that I did. Right there. And you can see how it's, this is going to be educational about how to build a header. How it's sandwiched there. And then you can see these metal Simpson ties I have here. I'm not sure what this type is called, but because I did it by myself, having that on there made it possible for me to keep these in place and get this on top of here a lot easier than it would have been if I didn't have those. So, and then I used the straps on both sides to hold that up against the studs at the top. Now, these aren't things that I found on a YouTube video or anything. I came up with these ideas myself, and I think they're pretty good. I probably did it better than it normally would be, but that's basically what everyone looks like, except for this first one that I did. I used a different type of Simpson tie when I did that. And if you can see that, I have these temporary walls here because of the dogs. I've got 7 dogs in my house. You can see the floor. You see where my oven is. You can see that I've got stuff everywhere. I got flooring over there that needs to be put in. I picked up an organ. I picked up that organ during Christmas time because I started thinking this is going to be an example about how my mind kind of feels like it's explosive with connections. I picked up that organ when I was dwelling on my dwelling on my ovary and my papa's death, and thinking about the organ that I lost, and thinking about Ren and trying to make it sentimental, and how we're gonna create some kind of experience out of that for therapeutic and building a family. And I just felt like I had to do it at Christmas time. These are the type of ways that I get. They're the urges or the impulses I'm talking about. I get an idea, I have to jump on it, and I am not. I'll quit just as fast in my emotions as I am. No, I think I'm faster in my emotions than I am. Well, I don't know. I'm fast in thought. It's the fact that I've just now recently noticed that my thoughts inside my head are not sounding the same as they do when I'm trying to talk to the video camera. So now I've noticed something that I'm going to be trying to work at. Okay, here's the next. Okay, right here across this area, that's where the hallway used to be. And there was inside of that hallway, there were 2 bedroom doors. That for that bedroom, and this used to be a bedroom right here, and you can see where the bedroom was. Now that's dark over there, and I'm not going to crawl over this. This is the sewing cabinet that I was talking about. One of the first things that I ever built, if you can see that. But I have a mess in here because everything is under construction. I have a sink over there I haven't opened. I have a dishwasher, and I tore out all of my kitchen cabinets because I've moved all those cabinets to the garage, painted them with chalkboard paint, and I haven't built the kitchen yet. I don't see. Here's where my old kitchen parts are. That's all I got right there. Now I've redid the plumbing right there where the old refrigerator used to be. And that's another thing that I've learned how to do is plumbing. So let me try and get my thoughts organized. Anyway, there's 2 sort of a double closet right there. That's a closet, and then inside that closet is another closet because it was a hallway. Okay, now, so that's 1, 2 headers, and I might have given a video about how I've done this before, but I'm doing it in sort of a different way, showing my messy house and still going to take the risk of how Ren Gill will respond to the way this house looks. That's an element of the video. A dare. Okay, now this is the bathroom that I set aside, and a big reason why I've set it aside is because I had this idea that I wanted us to share the bathtub experience together for the first time. So this was a closet right here. You can see that was a closet. I took down that wall and I took down that wall and I put the headers up and left it like that because I want to make sure that there was enough support. And in here we have a mess. Like I said, this is where the hallway was. And I turned that into a closet. This used to be the opening for the bathroom door. And then the closet opening was right here. And I put this header here and changed where the opening was. So that header goes all the way across there. Okay, so that's 6. You counted that right. The closet one is 2 headers, and then there's another closet in there where a opening was rearranged. So that's 3, plus this bedroom door. The old bedroom door used to be right here. Now we have a large one right here. And this, of course, is the bunk bed that I built. Okay, so I'm trying to stay with not providing too much information and somehow trying to be organized and not to use too many filler words. And I'm going to go over that the rest of the conversation with my notes for that purpose. I have shown my mess. Now you tell me if you're afraid to have a a roommate or wife. You said wife, as I am, and we'll go over what the benefits are here a little bit. I haven't written them down, but let's go over the stoic mindset, and we'll talk about the benefits in that sort of way. A stoic mindset, I think, is what we covered when we were talking about Sisyphus and going up the mountain with the boulder. Well, when you think about strength building, you're not going to build any strength training. You're not going to have strength training unless you're putting yourself into situations that's building up whatever it is that you're lacking. Such as if you were a spoiled child and kind of, snapped your fingers and got everything that you wanted right then, right now, and then you're in a situation where that's hindering you with how you need to be skill building yourself. Well, there's going to be all kinds of things that you're going to have to work on. Patience is one of the things that I'm thinking about right now when it comes to Bryn's butterfly tattoo, and that has depth that I could cover also, but I'm going to try and keep this as narrow as possible. Because the title of his album is Asylum. One of the things that I recognized with being put in the mental institution before I moved into my house was that it made it. I would not ever try and make that situation say that it was a positive situation. There were things of it that wasn't so bad. Medication part of it, horrible. Having to be locked up and treated like a baby, horrible. But there were some parts that weren't so bad. They're like it was kind of organized like a school would be in some ways. However, and there's things that I connected with when I was there was one of them called, I'm getting to see how I can get into stories because my life is long now. I can have a story about so many different experiences. One of the places that I was at was called Oceans. And when we were all locked up together, there was one of the doctors was a guitarist, and we'd come sit and we'd just He would sit and play music to everybody. Things like that. The food, they had cafeterias, and um, there were things that weren't so bad. But the fact of the matter is that I hated it so bad. Never that the alternative of me having to figure out how to stay alone in isolation because of having to have been a patient in mental hospitals was so much easier to bear. A lot of things when you go through this hurdle sort of situation are so much easier to bear when that lifts off of you and you're into a more responsible position, and you're kind of in a state of feeling gratitude for where you are, and that automatically, I think it automatically gives you a sort of a happiness. That was the benefit of the transitions. And so I guess that's a good butterfly analogy. And then I was thinking about, it seemed like if you were an outsider and you didn't understand different decisions that I've made, and I don't even understand every single decision I've made, because I can look back and think, well, that decision does not seem like the smartest decision. It looks like you didn't think that um, through enough before you jumped into it, such as that I have so many dogs. Those dogs saved my life. And I still think about that all the time. I don't want to use too many filler words when I try to describe these circumstances, but having to take care of them and having to consider that I decided to stay home after I decided to keep all of, or I decided to start staying home after Minnie got pregnant. So I only had two dogs then. But after they were born, before they were born, I said, I don't want to go back to the office and have to miss out on all the experiences that I get to have, because a dog's lifespan is not near as long as a human's. And then I had contemplated that I would just keep all of the dogs because I got attached after spending every single day with them as they grew older. And I didn't there I was in a different circumstance than the first time that I had puppies, and didn't wasn't ever home with my dogs. It was a completely different experience. And then on the other part of that was, I every time something happens, which I didn't, it felt, I guess, a traumatizing sort of circumstance where you felt devastated by what happened before. It's like your state of, you're always in a state of trying to fix the mistake that was behind you to feel better. It's a constant thing, and with the kinds of things that happened to dogs before, and feeling like I was in a position where I could be a, a savior is kind of what I felt like. And on top of that, I felt like they were my saviors because they gave me purpose to live for, and they helped me to think through all the little things to be appreciative of all the time. And that's sort of one of those, that's one of the levels of finding a skill hidden in messes. Everything might seem like you're not the most well put together person in the world, or you're not the most whatever. You're not the most fluent, skillful, however you would like to describe yourself. And when you can pinpoint those things, which is more like saying stopping and smelling the roses, figuring out how this particular feeling of what you have decided to be appreciative of in every moment makes you feel gratitude for your life, and take note of the things of what it is that makes you feel like you're, I guess rushing is the best word I can think of. When you're rushing from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, always thinking about trying to get somewhere instead of being fully immersed into what you're doing. It feels like you're losing too much time. And when you can, I don't, but these are, when I start to get tongue tied a little bit, I can tell that I need to do some vocabulary work and try and reframe my speech here. So I'm going to go back to my notes and we'll leave it at that right now. I'm trying to figure out how to get organized with my thoughts because I can get very long winded, and I can also skip over descriptions when I'm talking out loud. And I noticed that in the last video. And here's what I'm going to say about it. I did not take count of how many times I said each filler word, but I did write down all of the ones that I noticed using. Which, so, like, this, that, thing, kind of, whatever it is, anything, somebody, people, these, those, anyways. Those are examples of trying to shorten a description in order to squeeze in more ideas. But if somebody does not know your mind or what you're talking about and has no visual aid to be able to tell what you're talking about, that's not good. That I noticed. It's not good because I get aggravated or annoyed whenever I go to the store and the questions are vague and I've been snappy or I just ignore the question. And if I notice that in myself, then corrections can be made. Be descriptive. And the other point that I wanted to make, I was thinking about the story about how Adam and Eve in the beginning of the world were dedicated to taxonomy, which I think is only identifying things, identify with words, naming the trees, naming the water, all those. You see, I'm going to start to try and skip over that because in my mind. I'm thinking about getting descriptive, and I do not want to start listing things. There's an example. Things. List, 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 list. Let's not do the list. Let's say thing instead. Okay. Well, okay, I know my brain is smart because I'm always writing. I'm always describing things. I have so many tools. You name it. I don't even know how many saws I have. And I could tell you about each one of those saws. I've got a miter saw. I've got a table saw. I've got a track saw. I've got a jigsaw. I've got hand saws. I've got chainsaws. What else do I have? Well, I'm not going to name all of them, but you get the point. And then when you can think about all the different drills I have, Oscillating saw. There's another one. What is that other one called? Okay, I've got a pipe saw. Saws pipes. See, I use a specific saw all of the time, and I just lost it in my head just now, and I don't know how that happens. What is it? Anyway, okay, it's gonna bother me. But that's the kind of thing that happens to you when you're trying to speak. Sometimes things just go bloop, and they're what happened. You know it, and it hasn't been forgotten, and then you'll all of a sudden it'll come back to you. But when you're talking, you know you're smarter than it's coming out. So I don't really know how to explain it, but I am noticing it. So back to the notes here. As you age, you have so many stories in your mind about experiences that you've had. Sometimes it can feel how do you keep things from blending together? I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is I can tell what needs work. Let me continue with the notes. Okay, so I wrote down as how to do a better description of elements for what I learned when I was doing the fence building, and this is listing. Okay, at first I learned how to stir concrete in buckets, which I already knew how to do that, but that's how I was doing at first. And then towards the end, I was given a concrete mixer. So I learned how to use that. I had to go pick up all of the materials. I had to make a list of everything that I would need. I had to have the strength to be able to transport those things. The materials. Do better. I had to learn how to put together a tent. I had to learn how to cut sheet metal. I had to figure out what kind of scissors to use to cut sheet metal. I had to get gloves to protect my hands to make sure that I had to get the special kind of gloves where it did not cut your hands. They were sheet metal cutting gloves. I had before I ever started to build a fence, I had to remove bushes and crepe myrtles. And I said that 23 bushes and 3 crepe myrtles. I had to get all up by the roots. During the time when I was doing, okay, so the first time that I built the fence, there's 2 fence stories. The first time I built the fence was when the first time I learned how to do a drill, and I just put fence pickets over rotting fence pickets, which was not a good idea. And so the fence story is long. I wrote down a lot of things, but this video, I, I think we need to narrow, the point I was trying to make about the memory is trying to keep your focus narrowed down. If I'm talking to people and my stories blow up to be huge, because some of them are, I don't know how people are going to follow me if I don't keep it narrow in some way. But during the second time building the fence, I was listening to the Peterson Academy lectures from Jordan Peterson. I was getting to know Ren. I was deciding to build garden beds with all the fence. I would build a panel, and then I would get tall garden beds and fill that with dirt. And I was also learning how to create soil from the fish pond that I had made. And I was choosing seeds with sentimental value to decide to fill up these garden beds. And blueberries was the one that I chose because of Violet and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and imagining myself being Ren's Violet. But you know that's how it connects with his song today. That I made these things up for our future as I was trying to get to know what he was doing as a sort of a way to correct my past and build a future. So there was a forward looking element to what we were doing and a backwards looking element. Let's see. The secret garden party was when the garden building started. It's all connected together. Okay, and so the heartfelt thing that I wrote, I did not. Let me see. I did not talk about why I used 4 layers of walls. I did an outside layer of plywood. It's called OSB board first. Then over that, I put smart siding because that's how it made it flat. And then on the other side, I used the leftover smart siding instead of doing a piece of drywall to line up with the drywall. And then I put plywood over that and to make it all as even as possible. Now, it might have been more even if I had used drywall, but I don't like drywall. I do not want. I do not want my house made of white powder and um, paper. That's just okay. I get particular about things, and building strong external walls is what I'm into. I'm still going to be putting more layers on that back wall because I don't like the outside layer, but I'm not to that point yet. Um, okay, so the sentimental thing and I talked about how we should be appreciative of what someone does for you with Ren Gill. I am going to say it again. I believe it is true, and I believe that we're in love with each other. And we talked about how we were going to do homework together tonight, and he encourages me. Now, this is the first one I want to talk about because of what I thought about during my walk and what he put on his bicycle video today. He used the word smashed. Okay? So I was really upset about the smash or pass video he made a long time ago. And he knows my thoughts. And so I am trying to transform that thought in the same way as to how I had a past experience with sexual shame and regret, and how I try to transform. Ren helped me to transform that thought with the swallow birds and made love out of the situation. So if he can do that, then I can do the same thing, and we can create a balance with each other, and I can understand what needs that we can't erase our memories, but we can do things that are loving every day. And if we try and ignore it or we try and pretend that something didn't ever happen that upset us, that's not healthy. And so that's my bravery right now is to mention the smash, how to turn this smashed thing into a positive thing that we're doing right now, a positive element, positive relationship building element. Um, so smashed can mean excellent. Of course, smashed as in drunk is not what we're talking about here because we're not Ren and I are not um, how do I describe it? We have a uh, would you say it's called an ether type of relationship or a spiritual type of relationship? It's To use the word smashed as in what we're doing together is going to have to be in a form, a different sort of form as what are we doing today? I smashed out the windows with duct tape, which was a smarter decision, and I wrote family dowry over those windows and put money on the table. And then he put money in his back pocket. Oh, that was it. That was what I was going to bring up. When I had the old neighbors and the fence issue before, their dog was named Daisy, I think. And they okay, so I went through a bunch of different neighbors, and they didn't move there until after I drew Daisy the cow and talked about some other things about the word Daisy. And Daisy is a oxide uh, cow. And their son was named Connor, and there was Andy and Ashley, and that situation was strange. But anyway, Ren turned up with all these people in his life. That's after they moved. Is when I found Ren after all of these things had already happened, and Ren was pretending like he was a cross-eyed in some picture, and all that stuff started out as weird. I had painted a cow with cross eyes and put a bunch of coins under my um, I had made new baseboards under my bathroom cabinet. I created this time capsule that I was going to seal up under there and I put that picture of a cow, and I and I took pictures of the coins, and I wrote down all the dates and everything on the coins to try and make significance out of it. Just grabbed a handful, and I was going to try and do something with those years. And then it turned out that I saw Ren's had made a song that had all those coins on there. There was all kinds of that. It was very strange to me at first when I started noticing these things. And I saw him singing in front of an upside down turquoise house. And that was a huge, it's been a very long journey. And when I think about it in my mind, it feels like I've gone a really long ways, but I haven't ever left my house. And I don't even feel like I feel like I'm blossomed into this person I like to be, and fallen in love in a spiritual, just it's kind I was having fun a lot of the times with the things that I was doing, but some of it I did not like, but especially nothing to do with the fucking neighbors. It's like, oh God. It's like, privacy, please. But anyway, and then having to go through all the internet stuff, it's taken me a while to kind of, I guess, get past I just use it as a strength building thing and come out of my shell, go after the person who I have feelings for, do this family development thing, do this school. I think it feels like we're creating schools is what I was thinking the other day. I had watched I had watched the movie Little Woman before I got rid of my TV, and I was my favorite part of that was that she received this big inheritance to have her own school, and that was what excited her. And I started at some point I started saying that everything that I was doing in my house was creating a school for my children. So that's that thing. But as far as the smashed in a relationship is smashed, and when we take that smashed or past and we're going to try and use that in a positive, the same way I did with the spit or swallow thing, I excellence is the best word for smashed, and for past, I would say it would be like you're you're brushing over things too much. You're either avoiding things because they bother you, or you're not taking a moment to dwell on what is being said, and you're just focused on the shallow end of things. I, I don't know if I can explain it better than that. So, with Ren talking about Tommy Boy in the very beginning of this fence building thing, I had written a poem about Tom, and I had connected that with double vision from alcohol, and how you I don't know how to get descriptive about that either, but that was what I consider to be one of the punishments for drinking, is to have to experience the double vision, the twin vision. And that was the negative part of that. But then this whole new twin consciousness and um, other things have developed. Uh, I need to work on this idea here, because looking back at it, where it's connected with the negative elements of alcohol and punishment, looking forward as how I did with my ovary, and came up with the idea that my body was made a certain way so I could maybe give birth to twins, or it was not just a punishment, there was more to it, and that God designed me a certain way to be a blessing, and that I'm not exactly sure how all these things are going to come together. And I said with the second video, we said just try to do your best in each one, and where you start to get tongue tied, put the camera down and consider that how you do with your construction. You don't always know how things are going to go before you get to that moment, because you haven't been there before. And when you do get to that moment and you set things down, like if you've worked all day and you're trying to rush towards the end because you want to be having less to do the next day, if you're pushing yourself too much to get through it, it's not always the best quality. So set the camera down and consider where it starts to get where you start to get tongue tied, a, a moment to come back and do another one the next time. Call it a mock up or a rehearsal, and the rehearsal in the main event, or however you want to do that. And then if you kind of switch, you bat back and forth between those two things, you can notice yourself improve. And you have to go back and look at yourself and listen to yourself, kind of like how I described not being able to tell that things I observe about myself were always myself, whether that be some thoughts that trying to decipher who, if I'm speaking or my spirit friend is speaking, or if an impulsive thing that's unusual to me is the spirit world trying to communicate with me. It's those kinds of ways to decipher things out. When you get tongue tied, you know, I'm getting repetitive right now, but I think that we did a pretty good job. Now, Rin said in my head that we would write a song together, and that's not at the top of my head right now. However, did I cover the Smasher Pass thing in depth enough? Was it understood, or is that something I need to put on hold and come back to? I could also try and come back to it through my writing, but it needs to be heartfelt, because in my head, when I was thinking about it on the walk, full of thoughts. Trying to talk about it right now, poof, they're gone. And I think our relationship's going to work out, but I would really like to be able to communicate my thoughts and feelings and be able to remember the loads of information that I receive at certain points throughout the day after the fact, because that's hard to do sometimes, to recall things when you're do you, is it epiphanies or what is it when you're doing something and all of a sudden everything makes sense and you're perfectly clear and obvious in your head, and then you go back, you try to think about it later, you try to explain it later, and you're blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's that's not you. It's just you're trying to pull it all back out when it's just like some of these things, trying to go back and explain what the hell you're talking about. Okay, there was one more thing that happened. Okay, so I went to Walmart to pick up some supplies. Well, I got wood filler, and a salad. Okay, so when I came back out to my car, there were two police cars, and as soon as I got in my truck, they went in two different directions. One pulled out at one section, and the other went in a different section. And I thought, what is this about? Because obviously it seemed like it was something that I needed to dwell on. It's kind of like the universe jogs me to think about memories to address, and that's another reason why I said Ren and I are doing our homework together today, because he's trying to get me to think about something. Okay, so there were two instances where the police visited my house. So that's what I was going to discuss at the end of this video, which the police at Walmart is what reminded me of that. Okay, the first time was before Oxley got taken. And this is another reason why I said things with the neighbors got weird. I don't like the fucking anything about that around me. But so the first time, there was a neighbor living next door who used to play loud music all the time. Never met him. He was outside a lot washing his vehicle. The police came to my house at night. I think it was at nighttime, and said that the man next door, had reported a theft and they wanted to know if I knew anything about that. And I said, no, I didn't know anything about it. And I'm pretty sure that the police officer said that man was so upset at the neighborhood that he had decided to move. And then it was after that Oxley got stolen. And so it was like the warning came before the event happened. No, I couldn't. There's no way I could have known that had anything to do with Oxley. But it was that house, which it looked like Oxley ran, and that man had already left and moved by the time the thing with Oxley getting taken on Halloween happened. But when Oxley got out of my hand, it looked like there was a hole there. That fence had missing fence pickets, and it looked like Oxley got through that. And when I went to knock at their door, they said that they hadn't seen him, and so I was trying to connect that event to whatever happened later. Okay, so then the wasn't a police, it was a constable that came to my house the next time, and he said that he was going to put a notice on my door for, I think it was a couple of people, Elaine and somebody else I don't remember, and he wanted to put an eviction notice on the door. And I said, there is nobody who lives in my house other than myself. And he said that he would be back to. The conversation's hazy, but I remember the gist of it. He wanted to put an eviction notice on my door to get these people out for, I don't remember what reason, but I said that they didn't live here. And then he came back. I sort of yelled because I didn't understand what was happening. And then he came back and said that he was sorry that he had the wrong address, and the people he was trying to evict were on the street that was behind me, which is named Purdue. And we talked for a little while, and that was two circumstances which that happened. And I was trying to figure out if there were spiritual connections. What the hell was happening? I did not know. There was just, I don't want to talk about every single story with the police coming to my house, but all of it has seemed strange. So the other story was with the neighbors over there right now, and I don't want to talk about them because they still live there. So I'm just gonna refuse that one. But anyway, the point is, what? I can't always make sense of everything because I don't know. Sometimes things don't make sense until after the fact. And sometimes, even if things don't make sense to you, you have to sort of at least try to. I'm getting tongue tied again. Piece together things in a way which you can function with your life. It's I don't know how these. I do not know how to make sense of everything. But, you know, how does it make sense that I am in love with a person I've never met who, you know, is from Wales? How does it make sense that he even knows who I am? There's plenty of things I don't quite get, and to try and explain things that are outside of my sphere that I didn't come up with as plans for myself sometimes can get to me. I don't really like doing that so much. It doesn't it's a lot of guesswork. I can try, and I can try to come back to it later, and I can ask, what does this mean? And if it just seems like I'm getting long-winded trying to make up a story about it, that's not good enough. I can tell you about things that I have said and try and connect those concepts to why it might have happened, but without the other information from the other person's mind, I don't know how I can do that. There's things all of the time, every day, which happen that I can just be like, why does it seem like almost like, I don't know how I would describe it. Like, you know how a person with a bodyguard might feel, sort of. That's probably not even a good enough example, but why am I so important to have all this stuff happen? Or am I that important? I don't. There's just a lot. It's a lot. So how did I do in take number 2? Is it better? Ren, Gil, are we gonna sing a song together off the top of my head? Try. Say something inside my mind. I love you, baby. I love you, baby. And if it's quite alright. How does it go? I love you, baby. I like it when you call me baby. It makes me feel good. I also like it when it's obvious how like connected in the head we are. There's it just makes me feel like God, it feels good. It feels so good. I could be in that feeling for all day long. How good that feels to me. But anyway, we're gonna go the full 60 minutes. If you don't have a song that you want to sing with me, we can do it at another time, or you can help me come up with a few words to say here at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. Any other notes here? I just don't want to. I think our relationship is doing great. I think our relationship is doing great. What do you think? All right. Okay. What kind of improvements do you want to suggest to me for next time? Okay, I'm going to turn it off.